I'm excited to be here today.
Yep.
We're going to be talking with Frank Gruber and Frank's new book. Do you have a copy of the book? Hey, Michael. We'll get a copy of the book in a second. For those of you who don't know Frank, Frank is the executive editor of Tech Cocktail, which is a media company and events organization for startups and entrepreneurs. Since 2006, the goal has been to amplify local tech communities and give entrepreneurs a place to get informed, to get connected and get inspired. Previously, Frank built and launched products at AOL, Tribune, and Classified Ventures. He's known for a number of startups, including Thankful For and the Splog Reporter. He was named by Forbes as one of the most connected people in tech. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And his latest book is Startup Mixology, Tech Cocktail's Guide to Building, Growing, and Celebrating Startup Success. And we're going to talk about the book, but just in sum, it's a collection of stories from major tech companies and startups. Thank you.
Thank you.
Giving you all the ingredients to win at entrepreneurship. And one of the things I like about the book, it's really constructed in a fun way. Each chapter kicks off with a story from an entrepreneur, and you get insights on how they built their businesses, some of the challenges along the way. But it's also sort of a step-by-step, almost a like Startup 101 guide that's really helpful. You can follow Frank at Frank Gruber, and I'm at J. Joseph. And with that, Frank Gruber, welcome.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I thought we were starting with a reading. I thought, isn't that what we're doing? I've got time. Does anyone have time? We've got 272 pages.
That's awesome. I'll just dump my questions. You can just do a reading.
We'll just do a reading.
Chapter 4.
That'll be here for 40 hours.
Let's just give a little context and background to sort of build on the beginning. You're at AOL.
Yes.
What'd you learn at AOL that sort of informs what you do now and maybe informs the book?
Yeah, I think AOL was really interesting. I mean, we were building products for millions of people, which is, you don't always get to do that, right? If you're starting a new company, you're trying to gather those millions of people, right, slowly. And at AOL, they had that audience. They had, at a certain point, they had the biggest audience online. Obviously, there's a lot more other competitors that are bigger, but the ability to launch a product and have millions of users right away and getting feedback and all that was really an interesting thing to do for me, and be able to see the life cycle of trying to launch a product at a big organization. Because a lot of folks don't realize that launching a product at a big organization, it could take you a while. Like, it can take a couple of years to try to get out. What you thought was this perfect little idea has to get through a bunch of different places and then get through all of the I guess those checkpoints, and then ultimately launch, and that process takes a while.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll get into some of the tactics and strategies a little bit, but can large organizations be entrepreneurial? You say when you're a startup, you can sort of move quickly. With AOL, it takes years.
What you're seeing more companies kind of branch off and create smaller teams that are able to launch products more quickly, and that way, because otherwise you've got, they kind of branch off and create these little like labs or different organizations that don't have to. They more or less ask for forgiveness a little bit more than asking permission, I guess you could say. And you're finding that more of those companies are able to get things out quicker, and they're testing more. But a lot of times, it's really scary as a big organization to change something that's been working, a certain way for a while. I was at Tribune for a while too, and same thing. But their struggle was always with print, like physical newspaper competing with the online publications, and trying to decide if is it journalistically sound to have bloggers and full-time journalists next to each other online, is that that was their challenge. So there's always different challenges with different organizations, but if you can kind of branch off and create these little groups that are able to kind of launch things quickly and not have it be in the spotlight right away, it allows for that innovation internally.
Right. So you still sort of have that sense of spirit and sense of entrepreneurialism.
Exactly.
So given that experience, what inspired you to start Tech Cocktail?
Yeah, so Tech Cocktail, I wanted to start something to help better connect the community that I was in and better tell the story and amplify the fact that there was a lot of different active companies in the area, and no one was really connected. So started with a simple event, and then covering what was happening by bringing startups and early stage companies and larger companies together, and just kind of connecting those silos and trying to create a place where there's a community, the community could come together and feel comfortable interacting. And what happened out of it was that companies started doing business together. They realized, wow, I was in Chicago at the time. FeedBurner was a big company at the time when I first started, and they were there, and Threadless and 37 Signals, and there were also bigger companies like Boeing and Motorola and even Tribune and whatnot. And so trying to connect those silos with the fact that there's these companies here that you could work with was a big thing. And and then better telling the story online so that folks, not just in Chicago, but other places could see that and ultimately realize, wow, I didn't realize that there were companies in Chicago that were doing new things. So it was a bit of a challenge at first, but it caught on, and in other markets they saw it, and they started reaching out to me and saying, listen, can you bring this to our market? Can you start telling our story? So we started doing events and coverage in DC, and then Boston, and then Boulder, and we worked with folks that were starting this new thing called Techstars, which was a little accelerator program. And so we helped them launch kind of their first class and did a demo day, and then we kind of talked about their companies, and one of their companies ended up getting acquired through that activity. So by creating these opportunities for people to come together and then telling the story online, it really reiterated that there was stuff happening in those different places.
Right. So I think it's one of the cool things about what you guys do. You know, we talk about this a lot, that innovation isn't just happening in Silicon Valley or in Cambridge, but it's really happening all across the country.
Correct. Yeah. There's a revolution going on around the country. Yeah. You can start a company in your garage. You do need to have the right people, the right team, but ultimately, if you have, you can start anywhere, but then have those connections to the Valley or to New York or wherever those folks that might be able to help you along the way are. But we're seeing things happening in Fargo and Boise and Des Moines and Miami's actually growing really well right now.
Awesome.
And so there's just a lot of different places that you can start, and it's just a matter of now where do you want to be. You can, if you need to fly somewhere, if you need to go to the Valley, you can get on a plane a lot more easily now than ever before. But then again, just even things like technology here at at CES, there's so many different ways you can connect with people real time now with video chat and things like that. So the barriers have come down. It's a lot easier to launch companies. The cost of launching a company is significantly lower than a decade ago, or even 2 decades ago. You don't have to raise funding to launch a prototype anymore. Things have just totally changed, and so you've got platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo now and others that are helping get those prototypes out there and get some traction, and then ultimately show a little bit of a proof of concept so somebody else might come in and invest in it.
I like the way you put it. There's sort of this revolution going on around. I completely agree. It's one of the fun parts of our job to see that. We're going to get into the book, but before I talk about the book, tech cocktail, startup mixology. Dude, what's the obsession with alcohol? What's
It's a metaphor. Actually, it's interesting.
That's what I'm going to tell my wife.
It's a metaphor. Yeah, it's a metaphor.
It's a metaphor, not a problem.
No, it's not a problem. It's not me. No, but ultimately, there was a metaphor we tried to create around the idea, like, what could we call this thing when we first started? What could we call this thing that really, and we talk about it in the book, actually, what could we call this thing that really brings people together? And so we started with an event. So obviously, the first thing we thought of is, well, it is kind of like a cocktail of people, and we're bringing in, the investors and the media and the bigger companies. And it kind of stemmed from that. And because we had that metaphor going, we decided, okay, well, startup mixology makes sense because it's all the different ingredients that go into that metaphor. And so it's interesting that we say that, but then now, like, our website is actually at tech.co or tech.co. And, we're actually at the point now where audience-wise, we have millions of readers around the country and globe. And so we're at this point where, like, you know what? People aren't getting the metaphor online. So we're actually in the process of rebranding the website online to be just tech.co.
So breaking news here?
Heard it here first, yeah. So we like to launch that soon because, the cocktail brand has, been around for a while and people love that and people really resonates with people, but sometimes you can't get past it, and it is a metaphor, but we do cover, like, we write tons of content, put it out there every single day. And so we're in the process of really changing the look and feel of what we do and, continuing to excel in these different markets. I mean, cocktail brand will be around forever, so we'll start a mixology. But we're excited about the 2015 and what we're doing. So
we'll keep an eye out.
Yeah.
So when you think of cocktails, you sort of think of celebrations. And one of the themes of the book, one of the things you talk about in books and your speeches, is the importance of celebrating.
Yes.
Particularly for startups.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about why you find that to be so important?
Yeah. It's starting up or just doing business in general. It's really hard. I mean, it's an up and down battle. Starting up especially can be lonely. Maybe it's you and a couple people trying to do this thing that people are saying, you're hearing a million times that you can't do it. It's not going to happen. You're hearing no a lot. And so you've got to keep your spirits up. And another metaphor. You need to keep your spirits up, so to speak. And so what you can do is you can actually create, these momentum events, as I call it, and use celebration as a tool to help with that. So use it as a way to motivate you to that next thing. And it can help you in a number of ways. I mean, it can help your team morale-wise. Like if you create these little momentum events or little team celebrations around, finishing up your prototype or, the first sale or, inking a big deal or whatever. Create these little things along the way that help, once you get to that, you have that momentum event and keeps you going. It also is really, people don't generally talk about you, especially as a startup, right? One of the struggles is getting your message out. And one of the things I learned is no one's going to tell your story for you, so you have to be pretty good about sharing what it is on your own. And so I think, by creating celebratory moments or celebrating with a community, you might be able to get a chance to tell your story in a way that's not, a braggy kind of way, but you're actually engaging and actually sharing what you're up to. And folks will, it'll resonate with people. People will actually be attracted to your story a little bit more if you actually celebrate with them some of the wins, your first launch or your, first customers or whatever. So using these celebratory moments, it can help you, internally, externally. It can actually even help your community if you do it the right way.
Right. And can you continue that celebratory spirit as you grow? As it become more difficult? Does it change?
It definitely changes, but you definitely can include it. It's part of your culture ultimately, right? So as you grow, your culture is going to continue to evolve. At first, it's just you and your co-founders, and as you continue to grow, it becomes more people. And as you add more people, they influence the culture. And ultimately, you're trying to create, a culture that allows for celebration and allows for people to have these moments that will help you continue to motivate and move ahead. And so, if you create the right culture and you have celebration as part of that, it's going to evolve as you grow. So, and it goes both ways, not just startups, big companies too. I mean, you want to try to keep somebody in a big organization motivated. When you're in your own silo and there's a lot of different groups, you can do things internally too to do some of the same strategies to motivate that team, and think of it as your own little startup, your group as your startup, and apply the same methods.
Right. Even a large organization.
Yep.
Another one of my favorite themes from your book is this sort of theme about maybe it's your Midwestern upbringing, but that always be nice sort of theme. You write team troubles are some of the gnarliest to untangle. It's an unfortunate fact of life that some of the most brilliant people are also divas or jerks.
Yeah.
Why is being nice or at least friendly so important in the startup world?
You just don't. I mean, honestly, it's just I'm a big believer in karma. Like what goes around comes around, and it may not surface right away, but eventually it'll get you, right? And so I'm just try to keep an even keel and treat people like you want to be treated, and it'll come back. It's reflective. Like what you put out comes back to you, and I'm a big believer in that. And so. So in that vein, you wouldn't want to be treated terribly, so don't treat others. But then ultimately, you also have this situation where you've got let's say you just don't know where anybody's going to end up, right? Like so that's the other thing. It's like if you treat everyone in the same and with the same level of respect and everything else, you're just going to be better off, because the person you're talking to right now, the person I just met off stage or whatever, they could be the next Mark Zuckerberg. We have no idea, and so. There's no class system there. Just treat everyone the same and be nice to people, and it'll ultimately come back.
We have a saying in Washington, D.C. that you're always nice to the receptionist at the member of Congress's office, because they could be chief of staff one day and determine who goes in. So
that's exactly right.
That's the theory.
Yep.
But go thing on the same line. So why do you think so many of these successful people are, what's your word, divas or jerks? What is it in the mindset, do you think, that equates the two?
It's a great question.
One?
I think it's, after a while that, they've been told that they're worth $1 billion and their company and ideas are amazing. And, I think after a while that it's tough to keep your center. And so ego grows, and that's what happens, right? Like people, I don't need to do that. I don't, they're under me now because I have this idea that's on paper worth billions, so.
On paper.
Right, exactly. So I think if you keep that even, because that could go away, right? Like that's the thing. Like that could go away tomorrow.
Right.
And as the market changes, and it has for some people. And so I think that's where it's super important to just keep even, like you just don't know where it's going to end up. And if you're nice to people and you treat people well, you'll always have allies.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I ask in part because another thing you talk about in the book is sort of the rewiring of the brain.
Yeah.
That this theory that maybe those who are attracted to startups have different brain chemistry and wiring than others. So I don't know if there's a parallel there.
No, it's totally. And there's definitely. So I wasn't wired to be an entrepreneur to begin with. I grew up in the Midwest. All professors as parents. I have 4 parents. They're all professors in some way, and some English, some technology. And so I was brought up, go to school forever, get a really good, and as many degrees as you need, and then ultimately go back and, get a good job and work at it for 30 years or whatever. That was kind of their approach, and that's what they, instilled on me. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And so it took me a little while to get out of that thought process, and even in certain schools, that's kind of what they taught you at the time, and there wasn't the entrepreneurial kind of education that there is today. And so I think it took me a little while. It took me 10 years actually to figure it out by reading books and blogs and learning on my own and learning through trial and error, and sometimes it didn't work out, and sometimes it did. And ultimately, some of those are in the book, and it's I'm hoping that other people can learn from that, and the book will actually help them save a decade on whatever they're trying to do.
Save the decade.
Yeah,
exactly.
save a decade. Yeah.
Well, it brings up another question.
Yeah.
You talk about when you're in school that the education system wasn't really about entrepreneurship. Didn't sort of push people. Do you see a change as you travel around and talk to young people?
Yeah, back 10 years ago, that didn't exist. There weren't the entrepreneurial programs. It was literally be an engineer, be a developer, or do the kind of management kind of setup. Some schools, that's been their focus is entrepreneurship. A lot of them didn't have those programs, and so now they're adding entrepreneurship focused programs like entrepreneurial journalism or entrepreneurial apps or whatever, and trying to create these programs so people can come out and if they need to do their own thing. And I think part of that has been spurred too because the job market isn't what it was a decade ago, where you could come out and get a job and work for a company for a while. And so now students, I call them kids, students are coming out. Kids these days, right?
Exactly.
They're coming out and there's not the opportunity, so they've got to figure out what to do. And either there's plan A, go back to school. A lot of my friends decided to do that and go back, get more degrees and then come out and have a lot more debt and still not have a job and not know what to do. And so now it's like, okay, but you can come out now and just like apply this stuff immediately and start your own thing. And when you're coming out as a student, you're okay with sleeping on a futon, right? Like there's a little bit less of a you don't have a car payment, you don't have maybe you have debt from school, but aside from that, you're not tied into like mortgage and all these other things. So it's like the best time because you can get by on the least amount of money possible. And so you could literally come out and start a company and be comfortable with that for a while. And maybe, being broke because you've been broke forever because you're a student, right? What's the difference, right? So I think it's just a matter of rewiring your brain a little bit to understand that that's okay. You don't have to go work, right away at this big company, and that's not that's not who you are, right? So that's not going to make you like a better whatever. So yeah.
So do you think does it become more difficult as you get older? It goes back to that brain chemistry and that sort of. Obviously, there's a lot more at risk. I don't want to lose my mortgage. I don't want to put my family
there
at risk.
It's scarier when you get older. And I mean, even I had to jump off a diving board to do what I'm doing now. I mean, because of the fact that you get really comfortable. You get a really good, comfortable job. You have a 401k. You've got a condo or a house or a car or whatever, and you're set in a certain amount of money that you make. And when you pull that Band-Aid off and you're starting up, you're not making we didn't pay ourselves for 4 years. That's a long time not to pay yourself.
That's a long time.
I mean, we just paid our rent or whatever. Paid what we needed to pay, and that was it. And so a lot of people don't realize that that's the reality. Like if you're going to start up and you haven't taken funding right away, there's not going to be a paycheck for you right there right away. And so it's just a matter of comfort and just understanding yourself and what you can live with.
And you write about that a little bit in the book about teaching these people to be aware of the challenges. It's not easy. Everybody sees the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but they don't realize all the risks and challenges.
There's a lot of risk,
difficulties.
A lot of challenges. And it doesn't stop ever. Like until you're out of the game. Right. Every day is a challenge, even Saturday and Sundays. You're still thinking about it all the time, because it's a timed game. Like it's on a time scale versus when you're working at a bigger company, maybe you don't have the same time setup where you have to get stuff done because you could run out of money, or you could be a competitor that comes and swoops in and takes your lunch or whatever. And so you're constantly thinking about all these different challenges you're up against.
Right. Yeah. We're running down on time, but one of the things I wanted to explore a little bit, you write, no one can do it alone. We all need help, which seems to me to almost run counter to the sort of American ideal of startups and entrepreneurialism. How do you?
That's a tough one to challenge. A challenging one to kind of get your head around, and it took me a while to realize that. Wow, this is not like I'm going to get on my horse and figure this out. My white horse and ride off in the sunset on my own doing this thing. It takes an army of people to help. And you've got to figure out who are going to be your really supporters early on. Who are the folks that you're basically you have to build a team. Like you need people to believe in what you believe in. Early on we weren't making any money. Really we were covering what we were covering, but to get people to work for you for nothing or for very little is when you're first starting is that's tough, right? You got to really have a vision and they need to believe in it and believe in you. And so definitely it's a challenge. It's one of those things you kind of have to take on. It's all part of the game, So I don't know. I think when you need help, you need to realize that it's okay to ask.
It's okay to ask
for help. And I think that's where people get stuck sometimes. They're like, well, I too much of an ego. I can't get past it. And that's when you end up failing because you couldn't get out of the way to like get help when you needed it. So, and you're, I mean, even today, like we're constantly learning. Like there's certain parts of our business that are new to us, you know, because we haven't done that certain thing yet, whether it be in the media space or a certain type of thing we're doing. And so we seek out mentors all the time. We have a group of mentors we worked with for a while, but it's so important to find mentors that have done different types of what you do. Even those that maybe aren't in the same business or don't have that same kind of background, it's good to draw from a lot of different types of people because they're going to have different types of advice. But ultimately, it's the doing. It's you that has to get it done. So
at the end of the day, it still comes back to you.
And it comes down to the doing and not the talking about it.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before we close, you have a great job. You get to see tons of innovation, tons of cool stuff across the country.
Yep.
What's exciting you right now? What trends I think I asked you this question earlier. Like, so when you're home for the holidays, what do you tell your family about? What have you seen that's really cool that really excites you?
Geez. Oh, boy.
Come on, it's a softball.
Yeah, no, it is. I tried not to think about it this holiday season.
Fair enough.
No. It's I mean, there's just always interesting. Like we talked about drones, like and some of the things that are happening with drones, and like the different potential privacy things going around, like the issues around that potentially, and like how high can you fly a drone? There's a lot of question around that. That came up a few times because drones they're fun to talk about. Yeah. And we talked about self-driving cars a little bit, like how's that going to change how we interact, and how's that going to change with services like Uber or Lyft or whatever? Are they going to literally just have an army of those that just come pick you up? I mean, that's crazy. I wouldn't need a car, right? Like, or would I? I don't know. I would just get picked up and driven around. That I guess could be some people's dream, right? And not having like a chauffeur car everywhere they go, right? And so that was kind of neat. I'm trying to think what else we talked about. Boy, that's about it. I mean, we interacted. So I got one of my relatives a new media box. I actually got him the Fire from Amazon. I picked it over the Apple because or the Roku because they aren't tied into those. They have Amazon Prime, and so. But anyway, they were fascinated by the fact you could do that. I mean, we talked about how back in the day we would go to the library to get to rent the actual reel to get the 10-minute version of part of Star Wars or something. Right. And now it's it's right there.
It's unmanned. It's incredible.
It's one little click. It's pretty amazing, right?
That's funny. Sometimes we're all here and we're all big tech fans. And we see these huge trends, and I think sometimes we take it for granted, right? The fact that I can sit in my hotel room, hold this device in my hand, and watch television or watch a movie.
Watch whatever you want.
It's unbelievable.
It really is. Even we back in the day, I would collect CDs, and now it's I don't need that.
It's a CD.
Right. You don't need that. There's so many other options, that are smaller and compact. And you don't even have to carry them around. It's just, it's with you all the time.
Right.
It's pretty amazing to reflect that way and then realize, wow. What's going to be next?
What's going to be next? What's going to be for our kids in 20 years?
Exactly.
Well, thanks, Frank. Thanks for joining me on stage. We appreciate it. You're doing a book signing?
Yes, right over here. Yeah,
so right across the hall. So please come, sign the book. Have a great week at CES. And Frank, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yep. Thank you.